The following is intended for mature audiences. Viewer discretion is advised.
Sup, Deadites. I fancy myself a fan of the solo leveling series, and as much as I like it, I'd like to state this. This is in fact not a what if, but an original piece. At first I was going to make this a standard what if around Jinwoo's sister, but things went on and I committed multiple rewrites. I just couldn't justify binding it to the rules of that world, so instead of solo leveling, we're gonna make this an inspired story. The Gates, a tale in reality, linking one universe to another. By the way, when I say gate, I mean a literal gate. They just appear out of nowhere. The first instance happened in the middle of nowhere. To be clear, it literally happened in the middle of nowhere, Alabama. 4 brave souls entered the gate, armed to the teeth. 2 got out. I've heard this story all my life. Why? I'll get to that. Of the 2 that made it out alive, one was a straggly brown-haired, bespectacled white man with green eyes and a scarless cheek. He didn't have much in the muscle department, but they say he was a raw, wiry one. His name was Johannes Queen. The other was a rather tall black woman with grey hair and brown eyes. She was well built due to her soldier background. Her name was Chandra Queen, and she was Johannes' wife. A picture was taken of the 2, and they were both holding glowing items. Chandra had a chainsaw, and Johannes seemed to have a set of tools. Every tool on his belt had some luster to it. Their equipment just radiated power. These 2 people were the first to be given the title of hero, and also the first to awaken and gain classes. They utilized the skills granted to them and lived to a ripe age. Not to forget, they had my mother. Yep, I'm the grandchild of those illustrious heroes. Ever since the first incident, people can randomly partially awaken to a class, but a gate is still required to have full access to these incredible abilities. My name is Dora Queen, and I was also a famous first case. I was born with a class. If you're thinking my explanation is problematic, don't worry. I'm getting to the answer to that in a minute. Mima had a gate formed smack dab in the middle of the concert hall she was in. Long story short, she survived since she was an AA class cleric that kept her party, or in this case the entire SRO of the concert going, since it was a heavy gate. To be clear, in terms of gaming, I think that would be a raid. But back to the point. Ma didn't really know she was pregnant when the gate formed, but those poor souls, myself included I suppose, were in for 5 years and change. Gate time, not our time. Every heavy gate is slightly different, but there's one constant. Time is weird on the other end. I cannot give you an exact number, but at least in this one's case, it was pretty cut and dry. That concert hall was sealed for about 5 months. And that is where things start getting scary. There have been some instances where gates open and do not seal, and some where the party was wiped and the denizens of the gate run amok. There was one very memorable instance of that happening on some island in Korea. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Back to the point. Yo, Demo and Bones here, gonna get to the point here. I'm using this to work on a few accents and things. I apologize if I'm not getting the accent proper, but hey, it's a work in progress. So in this instance, sometimes the accent's gonna drop and sometimes it's gonna be there. Bear with me. Back to the story. The gate expelled everyone out, alive, and yes, a few people were shacked up and children resulted from said action. When my Gran and Gramp came, well, enough storytelling. Let's just watch the video. Nowhere Concert Hall Heavy Gate has been done losing its shine. Some fear that the poor souls dragged into the event failed to contain it, and untold horrors are about to exit. I, however, have it on good authority that the local guild, the Bronze Shillelagh, has arrived with their best party containing the Queen couple, the Queen's Gambit. Mr. and Mrs. Queen, are you prepared to handle what's about to come out of that gate? Johannes remained quiet, but his wife, Chandra, ever the show-off, stuck out her bountiful chest with her head raised high. Don't you worry none. The situation is in hand. We trained our girl since her aspect awoke, and while she's a cleric, she's a damn good one, with a strong head on her shoulders. I'm certain that under her leadership, there ain't nothing to worry about. Now, do me a favor and get that camera out of your cousin's face, Janice. You know he's camera shy. The reporter got the cameraman to back off after getting the desired exclusive interview. Back to Dara. I'm certain you want to know what happened on the other side of that gate. Well, that's a long story. Even longer story short, the particular gate wasn't a cut and dry situation. They had to interact with the denizens of the world of that gate. Some were friendly and some were not. Of course, the more romantic note is that on clearing a floor of the dungeon the gate was linked to, my mother found my father. Turns out he didn't abandon her, but was thrown back into his world when a rift that seemingly summoned no creatures opened and immediately shut. Mother tells me she slapped father, and I believe it. However, his gods weren't happy about that. The moment a blade was unsheathed, stand down! This woman is my betrothed. Rest easy, beloved. No harm shall come to you by my knights. How did you even get here from Earth? A long conversation was had, and eventually they conquered the dungeon, which of course led to the scene from before. But around the time the gate opened, it expelled everyone and shattered. At that moment, the Queen's Gambit let out a breath they didn't even know they were holding. A head count was made, and everyone was counted for, plus about 10 individuals, all children, huddling around one individual as if protecting them. Now what's all this? Why are all those wee ones forming around that petite one over there? Johannes asked as he made his way to the group, only to have magic blasted his direction. Do not approach Our Lady! All these children were gung-ho about protecting their lady. And then, one person spoke up. It is fine, young Maurice. That man is Dara's grandfather. Stand down, young ones, and let him see her. Yes, my queen. Gramps' eyebrow raised at that. But, of course, he got a good look at what we were all wearing. Yes, we all had proper gear on, but it was very high quality and seemed to scream of regality. As a matter of fact, to this day I still have my royal battle garb. However, some would say it doesn't suit me these days. Why, you ask? I'm getting to that. The second my mother gave the order to stand down, my retinue hesitantly did so. Hello there, little lady. I'm Johanna's queen. I'm your grandfather. Johannes patted me on the head, and then something happened to me. My body surged with painful energy as it started to contort and expand. My body was attempting to reject whatever change was happening. However, it is an attempt that ultimately failed, at least partially. My body morphed a bit and I could feel a painful tingle. Once it resided, I checked the source of said tingle and screamed, Mother! I don't think I'm a girl anymore. My mother rushed to me post-haste and confirmed in shock. Check all the children for any residual effects. I think this world is attempting to have its way with them. My daughter is now my son. I could tell I was changed, but I resisted to my very core, and I believe, short of the transformation, I won. I extended my will to project my attendants, and they could feel it. This world would not violate them as it did me. As far as my attendants go, they weren't all human. And this world didn't seem to like that. Some were half-elves, some were half-orcs. I even have a few goblins and hobgoblins in my service. Not to mention the occasional tiefling. And an Azamar as well. I had a feeling that this world was attempting to force them to be human. And I wasn't having that. Not at all. They all bowed to me. Thank you, Lady Dara. That's when my Gramps spoke. Wouldn't that be Lord? My mother, vassals, and I shot him a death glares, and he stopped talking. I may have been young, but I'm royalty, as well as being what on earth is called a tinker. I was made to study at a young age, and I took to the information like a fish to water. I knew I was gonna need a few things, but I didn't want to give up on my former self completely. Once again, this is the first, but not the last incident of people leaving a heavy gate with children. Different gates have different sheen to them, and to this day I have never seen another golden gate show itself in the world. But back to the point, yes? The children, myself included, get registered and taken care of properly. Some math had to be done with figuring out our equivalent birth dates. My attendants vehemently refused sharing the same birthday with me. Time went by and I grew up to be male. However, I was quite slender and feminine looking for one. I would find myself working as a tinker and a waitress at the Bronze Shillelagh. I would come to blows with my headstrong gran from time to time, who would refuse to call me her granddaughter. God may have had its way with my body for one point, but I will not let it take me completely. I refuse to give in to this dissatisfaction. Gran hears me, but rolls her eyes. She's heard me say it all my life. Look, kiddo, I ain't saying you ain't no girl. In fact, we don't raise you like one, but you need to accept cards you were dealt, baby girl. I dropped the glass I was holding when Gran called me that. She never called me that before. At that, I jumped into her arms. I love you, Granny. She accepted the hug, then pointed to the broken glass. Luckily for me, it was a clean break. I touched it and cast Mending, a must-have cantrip for tinkers. Yo, Dead Man here. So, I'm using D&D as a basis, but ignoring some rules while reinforcing others. Cantrips can be learned if your class supports said cantrip, and you can learn as many as you want. It does, however, take time to learn them, but let's get back to the story. With that taken care of, my grandfather speaks up. So, I hear you'll be going to live with your ma in Silvertown. She's got herself a nice branch of the Shillelagh over there, but of course she had to one-up us and call it Silver. I chimed in about how that's technically two-upping them and giggling. I finished my last shift in Nowhere Branch and enjoy my last night living with my grandparents. Oh, and don't forget to tell your little lady friend I say hello. Been a while since I've seen my little prince. Seriously, I haven't seen her since she got back from her tour with the military. I hear she's actually trying to put a crew together under that guild. She even tried to ask for the party name. I told her that you can have that name when there's a ring on your finger. Gran smacked me on the back and sent me to the ground. She should know her strength by now, dammit. Or, more accurately, my lack of it. Once again, I am a frail, tiny little thing. I'm about 5'5" and weigh in at about 120 pounds, if that. I've been mistaken for female all my life, since this world didn't have its way with me completely. I maintain a rather girlish look, and voice even. I'm certainly not leaving to avoid the jealous glares that are coming my way for getting all the attention I'm getting. But with my grandparents retiring from the life of adventure at 45, but of course I was a little red in the face at the mention of Caitlin. She and I are kind of a thing. Despite what my grandmother was saying, I have accepted my body. Caitlin helped me come to terms with the fact that I am who I am, not what I am, and I love her for it. The next day, I grabbed my bag of holding and leave my home of 17 years for the new kingdom, guild, my mother, Janet Queen, had set up in Silvertown. Her exact words were, Listen here, mother and father. You have kept my daughter for yourselves long enough. I would like her back now, please. I would like to see my daughter. Don't get me wrong. I love my mother, and she loves me, but Gran and Gramp needed me. However, they've got a few new tinkers in the guild now that can fill the hole that I'm leaving. Tinkers are rare and usually not taken into standard gates much, since you can only bring so many people into a gate. However, they are a worthwhile boon for the stronger gates, since equipment both magical and non-magical can break or stop working. Size and color can determine number, or so the experts say. In this case, remember the heavy golden gate I came from? So yeah, I guess I knocked that off the mark. Tinkers are usually considered at E class, and good ones can be said to be high D or low C, but I'm a B rank. About mid-tier, I believe. It took 3 tinkers to replace in Gramps' eyes. That says a lot. A whole lot. This is the point where the young adult leaves and gets on a bus. Nope, not happening. Gramps slips up a carpet and pours mana into the circle. They give me a hug and the usual line of "Don't be a stranger." After the hug, I step into the circle. Good luck, newbies. You're gonna need it. And then I was gone. I was met by a half-orc that I knew very well. She wasn't even paying attention to the circle completely. Enough that her weapon was at the ready. While guns don't do a lot of damage to non-humanoid monsters and some species with thicker hides, it's still a gun, and can definitely cause harm to the poor soul that gets shot by it. I should know. I made it after all. Welcome to the Silver Soleil, newest transfer. Just take a seat and... Princess, my deepest apologies. The half-orc in front of me clamored. On your feet, Jade. I'm no princess. In this world, at least. Jade did as instructed, but muttered under her breath that I don't quite hear, but if I had to hazard a guess, was something sweet like, "You'll always be my lady." That thought made me smile, and Jade smiled back. I walked to the common area, and since this place has the same layout as the Bronze, only much bigger, due to the fact that it's in the big city. The second I got out of the tavern area, my mother greets me with a hug. "Dyra, my dear child, it's been ages since last..." I'm speaking like a queen again, aren't I? Either way, I've missed you something awful. Are you ready for your work as one of our best tinkers? Mother jokingly asked, while waggling her eyebrows. She knows me well enough to notice while I'm subtly searching for someone. Caitlin's out getting the rights to a gate for us. This ain't like it is in nowhere. We ain't the only guild worth a damn, and most fools think I'm riding your grandparents' coattails. Well, let's make 'em eat those words with a side of whiskey to wash it down. A drink is placed in front of me by a smiling hobgoblin girl. I don't know her, but she seems nice. I poured a few back with my mother, waiting on Caitlin. She arrives an hour later and drags me away from my mother. Use protection! I'm too young to be a grandmother. Pot calling kettle black, mother. Whether she was joking or not, I'm dragged to the dance floor with my Amazonian of a girlfriend. We look like a rather odd couple since, once again, I'm a tiny little thing. After the dancing is done, Caitlin hands me a walk order for a heavy gate. I assume I'm coming with you on this. She didn't even grace me with a response to that stupid question. When are we going? I need to have a rough idea for time management. Caitlin sighs. As much as I would love to give you a week to handle everything we need, you've got 24 hours. We need to enter that gate the second it forms for entry. We need every advantage we can get to stay in the rankings. That gave me a concern. What are you? Another sigh. So, that lets me know that the boss didn't tell you. We're struggling to keep our place on the top 10. We used to be in the big 4, but now we're barely keeping our spot as number 8. Things are gonna change now that you're here, though. I'm begging you. Work a miracle here. And a miracle she indeed attempted to work. So, as a reminder, for any D&D adjacent products I do, I roll as if I'm playing. Since our girl basically is an artificer of 6th level, she had tool expertise. You'll see the results in a bit. Over the night, in what was now my new lab, I began the arduous process of tinkering and making the best of what we had. The quality of some of the equipment before me was shockingly bad. I tried my best not to cry at the realization that we were being shafted. What would have happened if I stayed in nowhere a little longer? Perish the thought. One good thing about having either been through a rift or a gate are the benefits of being able to shake off most wounds or illnesses with a proper night's rest. But not as many as you would think would do that. But, of course, I worked great into the night to finish making the equipment before me into something excellent. When the sun came up, it was time for me to go. First things first, I'm gonna need more space in my bag. Reaching for what I'm looking for was second nature. I pulled out my companion that I made from various scrap. In a matter of seconds, my creation stood before me. She cooed at my touch. Good girl, Gilda. Gilda was a golden mechanical griffin, the proud reminder of my family's crest, the royal half, not the commoner one. If I had my way, I'd use my last name, not my mother's maiden name, but it felt like slapping my grandparents in the face. But less of that and more of getting ready to leave. Gilda has a wonderful magical saddle that I made her, and it works like a charm. Either way, with everything that wasn't needed for today's event taken care of, I loaded what was needed and put it in the bag. With a press of a button, the doors on the veranda that I demanded be there and able to handle a certain amount of weight slid right open. As soon as I hopped on my mount, we were out of there. Gilda flew me to the egress point with style. Yo, Deadman here. For those of you that haven't figured it out, I'm playing with basically a battlesmith here. And while I know technically the Steel Defender is meant to be a medium creature, this isn't D&D, so... And I've modeled it after a griffin. Griffins are large. Large can carry yada yada. You get the point. So, let's get back to it. Alright, Bishop. Enough stalling. Just admit that your extra is a no-show, and let's get this. The second that was said was when I landed, right in front of them. I take one look at Caitlin. I'm on time, right? She nods, and I start handing people their equipment that I took most of a day working on. Benefit of being a delver is, as they call us from time to time, is I only need roughly 6 hours of sleep and I'm good. The party was delighted with what I gave them. Before me stood a party of 4 individuals, not including myself. Caitlin or Gilda, a blonde-haired, blue-eyed, muscular gentleman. By the looks of him, he's one of Caitlin's army buddies or something. A Hispanic human female that seems to also be rather sturdy. And the other 2 I know very well since they're vassals of mine. Well met, princess. 2 voices said to me at the same time. A smile was on my face. I haven't seen the Williams sisters in a few years. We kept in touch like most of my inner circle. However, they were identical twins except for one thing. One was a tiefling and the other was an Azamar. Well, good news is, we've got a mage and a cleric covered. I was lambasted with hugs in a matter of seconds. I handed everyone their gear. The sole male of the group, since I don't really consider myself a male in actuality, looked over his gear with vigor, and I could feel myself being inspected. So, he's a tinker, capable of making our gear this good in a matter of a day. I'd call BS if I didn't sense his energy all over it. About to correct him and yell at the invasion of my privacy, but the second part can't really be helped considering where we're going and with an understaffed crew for that. Caitlin said this was all she could gather, and if we didn't get in there today, we forfeit ownership. Before I could say a word, Blondie began to look pale. He began to take on a bit of an anemic tone. Ciel, that's enough. We need him in working order. Also, it's rather rude to inspect someone like that. Since 2 of you don't need an introduction to me, I shall make it brief. I'm Dara Queen, and I shall be your tinker for this excursion. I am a B-ranked tinker, and this here is my companion, Gilda. Gilda squawked at the rude boy, who introduced himself as Tristan. The Hispanic woman went by Cadenza, which is her last name. She'll open up to us eventually, if this works out. With the introductions out of the way, we entered the gate. The moment we entered is when things took a turn for the worst, however. The gate vanished on us, and we saw red hue as it vanished. Well, that's not very good.
If you like that, United States has smashed that like button. Let's go full calling on the notification icon. Ring that bell, baby. And of course, don't forget, Go plus ultra on the subscribe if you're not. Now rest easy, Deadites. And remember,
The night is ours.